Did you know that around 50% of doctoral students drop out before finishing their degrees? Many struggle with stress, burnout, and even depression. But on the flip side, those who navigate the journey successfully go on to thrive in academia, business, industry, government, and so on. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how exactly you can succeed in your PhD journey while actually enjoying it, just like I did. Hello everyone, if you're new here, my name is Marvi. I finished my PhD last year, 2024 in May, chemical engineering from the University of South Florida. I would say my PhD overall was an interesting journey. Yes, it had its downsides but overall it was interesting. And I'm going to be sharing with you tips on how to actually successfully navigate your PhD journey while enjoying it also, making it enjoyable. So let's go. So first thing first, for me, it was God. So I'll say your faith and mindset. PhD is a tough journey. It's not like masters or bachelors. It's something completely different. And for me, I had to hold on to God. I had to hold on to my faith through the different phases of my PhD to keep me grounded. So that's like the biggest part for my tips, because without God, all of these other tips that I'm talking about probably would not have worked. So for you, whatever keeps you grounded, whatever you believe in, keep a positive mindset. You have to hold on to that, whether it's meditation. For me, it's God, it's Jesus Christ. So that's number one tip. So secondly, choosing the right lab. So when you come into your PhD degree, you're actually becoming a researcher in a particular topic. So that's what they train you to be throughout your PhD. And after your PhD, you're meant to be someone who could be an independent researcher. And so this means you have to join a group, you have to choose a professor, you have to join a lab. I'll say lab maybe mostly for sciencey, but maybe social science and art, they just say group. But you need to choose the right lab, you need to choose the right group, you need to choose the right professor. And I would say you make this choice in twofold. First of all, the topic you're interested in. Because you're going to be spending 4 to 5 years researching on a topic, you don't want to go to a group that does something you're not interested in at all. So you really want to look through all the groups in your department and see the ones that are doing topics that interest you, because interest is very important to push you through this journey. So let's say you look through all of the groups and you've seen like 3-4 professors that research topics in your area of interest. It will be a mistake to just then pick the biggest professor, or maybe the one with the highest title or biggest name. When you've picked when you've noted down professors that does things you're interested in, then you now want to go research on the work environment there. This is something I didn't do, but honestly I was lucky, or I was graced to actually still choose a group that was good for me at the end of the day. So you need to choose a group that you are compatible with. So you need to find out the work ethics in that group and be sure that it matches with your values and your work ethic. Most of the time people choose groups or professors that they are not compatible with, and that's just like beginning of stress or failure. So for example, if you have a goal to finish your PhD in like 4 or 5 years, you don't want to be going to a group where everybody there is spending like 7 years. That means the professor in that group doesn't agree with your goal of finishing a PhD in 4 to 5 years. And so if you enter such a group, you'll just be met with frustration, because it will keep you there longer than you want to be kept, right? So a way to do that is like going to the students of the group and asking them how their professor is, what he expects, things like that, just to make sure you're compatible. I won't say like some professors are bad and some are good, maybe some are bad. I don't know, I've heard stories. Anyways, but I think it's more of compatibility, right? Because even as I say I was lucky in my own group, I know that when I entered, I saw like at least one student being dropped from the group. So in that case, that student was not just compatible with my group, not necessarily that my professors were bad, because they were not bad, they were the best, right? For me, because we were compatible. So in order to prepare yourself for success from the beginning, just make sure that you're entering into the right lab, choosing the right professor, and getting into the right group. Do your research. So when you've joined a group, you want to set expectations with your supervisor. You want to set up that meeting, right? Okay, you might have attended some meetings in the group to see how things are, but set up that meeting with your professor. Ask him or her questions on what you need to do to succeed, what they expect of you. Things like, how many papers are expected of me in this PhD? That's actually very important, because if you are thinking maybe you would just want to publish one, and then for them one is like failure, then that would be a problem for you, right? So most of the time, maybe a department would have milestones for their PhD students to reach before they can graduate. But even when a department has that, your group has their own, like your professor has his own expectation. So in my case, my professors from the beginning told me that they would expect me to have at least 3 to 4 first or third papers. So from the beginning, I knew that all of my research, whatever I was doing, I was making sure I structured it in a way that could bring out up to 4 papers, and that's what I did. And so because we set that expectation from beginning and I worked towards it, I was confident that I met their expectations of me. So but apart from papers, acts like communication style, set up like how do we communicate? How do you best communicate? Emails or meetings? How would we be meeting? Every 2 weeks, every week? Just make sure that you set up all of the expectations, communication styles from the beginning, so that you know how you're planning your 4 to 5 years. Okay, so the 4th tip I'll say is mastering the literature review. This is like, of course, why will I not read the literature review? But I think early PhD students really don't do a lot of time in literature review. They jump into the lab, especially like experiments or whatever. They jump into the lab learning all the equipment. Yes, that's good because that helps with your skills, right? But even while you're learning like experiments or equipment, and you maybe start doing experiments, you should spend time doing literature review. So when you start your PhD, most of the time you don't even know what you want to research. You know the area, the broad area, but you don't know the specific topic. And most times your professor might just give you a topic to start with, maybe a topic that they've submitted and they've gotten grant for, and they give you that topic, and you probably do not know anything about the topic except like what you read in the proposal, and like you're reading some papers, and then you just jump into experiments. What I learned in my PhD, like at the beginning part of my PhD, I was doing experiments. Later part, I was doing more of modeling and analysis. But during that time for experiments, I noticed that sometimes I might just spend a lot of time in the lab. I think I even have a video here where I was happy that my equipment started working. I'll post it here. Yeah, like I said, it's good to learn all of those equipment, know how to repair it, but sometimes spending time in, not sometimes, all the time, like, because when you become a mature researcher, you know that before you dive deep into experiment that can just keep going and wasting time, you want to make sure that you're not even trying to do something that maybe has been done and is not really worth it. Do you get what I'm saying? For me, during my experiment time, I know that I was just trying to repair some equipment, blah blah blah. I spent a lot of time there, and when I had finished repairing, I wanted to now go to the next stage, and my professor now told me that, oh, there's no money to buy the extra things I needed. So that's communication, right? Which may be setting expectation communication. I didn't communicate properly to see that even when I repaired this thing, I will not be able to continue. When I reached that brick wall, I had to go into the rabbit hole of literature review again, because like my professor just told me, oh, there's no money. He didn't give me solution. I had to go look for solution in literature review, where I now saw like an alternative method that we could use to test test like my materials. And yeah, like me that was wasting time in the lab for 4 or 5 months, if I just communicated properly and I knew that that was not going to work, and then going to literature review, I could have saved a lot of time. Maybe that's not a good enough example, but some people just go, I know I've talked to friends and like they're saying nobody has done this thing, I'm like, it's a lie. No, it's a lie. Like, yes, when we're doing PhD, you want to think that we're the first person doing whatever, but like literature review is all around the world. There's somebody that has tried something. So that mindset of you're the only one doing it, first of all, is a lie. Because when you have that mindset, you think that literature review is not needed because nobody has done it. But spend that time in the library, like, or reading like literature review. Spend 1 week and it will save you several months in the lab. So that's very, very important. Literature review is super important in your research. The 5th tip is asking for help. I know sometimes we like to think that we can do it all by ourselves, like, oh, we know everything, we can do it, no need to ask for help, but like you're just making things or life difficult for you. So if you're doing something and like you're not making breakthrough in your group, I'd say you should start from your group, from your supervisors. If you've like asked questions and maybe you're not getting the response you want, you can ask your group mate. You can't control whether your group mate asks or not, but if you have good lab mates and all, you can ask for their help. They do not help you, you can ask outside of your group. So these are things like maybe you're just thinking of like next steps or how to overcome this problem, blah blah blah, rather than just like keeping it to yourself. Like I said, ask in your group. But even if you don't get it in your group, you can discuss with people outside of your group, even outside of your department. Like you can explain, like, I'm chemical engineering. I can be discussing with my friend in physics and maybe he doesn't really understand what I'm saying because he's not a chemical engineer, but I can like try to now break it down in layman's term and just see his own idea, because that's the thing with research. Like most of the time is the ideas we need to now direct us to where we're going to, right? So you can discuss with your friends and see like where their ideas think or blah blah blah. You always get new ideas when you try to discuss with people. So always ask for help, even in places where you think you might not get it. That's like outside your department, even outside your school, in conferences and all. Learn to discuss like, oh, this is what I'm thinking, blah blah blah, explain it and seeing what their response is. Even if it's not directly the solution, it just gives you an idea of where you can go from there. So yeah, do not be scared to ask for help, whether within your group or outside your group or outside your school. Very, very important. Applying for opportunities, that's the 6th tip. Apply for opportunities from the beginning of your PhD study. And when I say opportunities, I'm talking awards, whether internal or external, conferences, like going to present posters or talk, fellowships, scholarships, or even leadership positions. Some people just think that, oh, I'm doing a PhD, all these things are just distraction, I just need to concentrate on my research. But you're doing yourself a great disservice when you're just like doing your research and not doing any other thing, because what differentiates you from every other PhD student, if every other PhD student is doing their research, right? And if you just want more opportunities in life, like even after school, easily getting a job, getting other opportunities, like maybe even for international students, even your green card that you need to show that you're top of your field, all of these opportunities that you apply for while in your PhD will help you stand out. So a fellowship comes and you just need to submit like explaining your research. Just take out that time to write. You just even need like maybe a skeleton for applications, like explaining your research, and you can just edit that through different applications, right? And so you're not doing any extra thing. You're literally just explaining what you're already doing and you're submitting, and you don't know, you might just win it. For me, I was on fellowships while I was in my PhD. I had several scholarships, awards, and this all helped me to even postgraduate and a lot of the other things I'm pursuing right now. For fellowships, for example, scholarships, if you win it, you just get extra money to your stipend, which is good, right? Nobody, like, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't like money. That like they give you the money, but also it's prestigious, and so it stands out in your resume. For conferences, you get to build your network. Even beyond conferences, all of these other opportunities I'm talking about, the fellowships and all, it helps you build network outside of your group, outside of your university, which is going to help you professionally, right? So something I see people saying, because when I was still in school, there's some people who be like, oh, are you applying for this conference? And we was like, oh, I don't think I have results yet. Now that's like a bad approach, because you don't need to have all of your results to go and present in a conference. In fact, most of the time, what I even noticed towards the end of my PhD, when I had all the results, the 15 minutes was not enough, or 10 minutes was not enough to present all of my work. So when you're presenting in conferences, you don't have all the time, so you don't need all of the results. You just need creativity in order to pass your message. Why are you doing this? What's the problem? And what are the steps you are taking? What have you done yet? And what are you going to do afterwards? So you don't have to have all your results. I started winning awards in conferences from like my second year. Was it second? Like from my first project anyways, when I had not even done a lot of things. Like I started winning awards there because I was already like building skills on how to pass the story, how to create it in visual forms. So if you're in your PhD and you're like, oh, I don't want to start presenting because I've not done enough, you're just deceiving yourself. That's just the thing. Like it's a lie. You can present, you just don't want to present. So take off that excuse and apply for things and just make your portfolio richer as a student. And these are things that now make you enjoy the PhD, because like I said, you go for conferences, you meet friends, you meet new networks, you might win awards, which is money. You get to travel. For me, traveling was like, I loved it, right? And with conferences, I didn't have to pay, like, because when you're presenting, there's always funds to help you travel, pay your flight, pay your accommodation, your hotel. So for me, this was a good thing. Like I was there presenting my work, but I was also traveling, going to new places. So also applying for fellowship and getting it and getting extra money that was not just my stipend just made me live a richer, more enjoyable PhD life. So definitely do that. Leadership positions, like maybe a group that you're interested in, like maybe Society of Women Engineers or National Society of Black Engineers, or like any like group that you love and you're part of. Learn to also volunteer to be a leader, because that's also good in your resume and in interviews. Like when they're asking you some questions, you just have like a wealth of portfolio to drag from. So definitely apply for opportunities. The 7th tip is taking breaks. It is very important to take breaks in your PhD journey. The PhD is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Hope I got that right. Anyways, what I mean is that you can actually, there's one of my friends, before he entered this PhD, he was like, Jennifer, I'm just going to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm just going to do this, do that, and I'll graduate. I'm like, are you sure? He has not graduated. He has not graduated yet. But like, I knew he was just talking that time, right? Because I'm like, PhD is not like that. Like, you take your time, because if you rush, especially maybe in UK, but in the US, 4 years is, I think I've seen someone done 2, 3, but mostly it's like 4, 5. Then some people get to 6, 7, right? So, but you can aim 4 to 5 years. But 4 to 5 years, that's a long time. That's the entire time we used to do our undergrad as engineers in Nigeria. So, and like you take breaks, right? And undergrad, you go for holiday, come back, blah blah blah. But PhD most times not like that. Like even when like the school goes on holiday, the only holiday you're getting there is if you were a teaching assistant, then you'll not teach at that point, but you continue your research most of the time. So there's no like official break. Some groups I think have it, but my group never had official break. So you have to take break for yourself in order to keep up productivity and not to run mad. So take breaks, very important. And breaks can be different for different people. Some people, playing football is their break, playing video game is their break. For me, it might just be like, I was so glad I did my PhD in Tampa. Like, it was wonderful. So I could just go somewhere new, go to a resort and all, and replenish and come back. Traveling was taking breaks for me. So sometimes even with these breaks, I'm still working in the break, but at least me changing environment is a break to my brain to even make me think more, right? So make sure that you're not, especially when you reach a blockade, right, which you always reach in your PhD. There are times, me, I'm saying I enjoyed. I cried so many times in my PhD, but like when you reach those points, right, it's good to just take a break, forget about the research and go and do something that makes you happy. then come back. So whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you refreshed, make sure you always like take time to do those. So like I said, for me, it was when I was traveling, I was just going to like somewhere nice around Florida, or going to spa. At the end of towards my end of my PhD, I now started taking Pilates, things like that. So just make sure. And for my babes, like the girls, another thing like related to this break or whatever is like walk around your cycle. This for the girlies that have like painful cycles and all. For us, maybe 2 weeks of the month we're like bubbling, like creativity is high, and like the other week, like 1 week where we have our period is like we're dragging, and like the other week is like luteal phase is like still dragging. So for me, what I started doing was like planning my research around my cycle. So like for things that I know needed energy, needed me to be up on my feet, going into the office, doing my modeling, blah blah blah, I make sure that it's like towards that the week where I'm bubbling creativity, or even structuring paper where you need creativity. So doing it in those weeks where you're good. Then in the weeks where you're like there's a energy dump, do like less like activities that do not require physical strength or physical activity, right? So maybe you've already structured your paper and all, and maybe that dump here, like maybe grading if you're a teaching assistant, or maybe like just writing, like things like that, or maybe just analyzing, something you could do easily, right? So that's something. So this even beyond PhD, honestly, even at work. Yeah. 8th tip, I'll say, having a hobbies. Most people during a PhD, the work they are doing is their all and all. Like that's the only thing they know. That's the only thing that brings them joy. If it's not working, then they are depressed, blah blah blah. And then you cannot spend 4 to 5 years in your PhD and every time everything's working. No. So having a hobby outside of your PhD is very important to bring you joy outside of your PhD work. So in those times where things feel like they are turning upside down in your PhD, you have something else that you're doing that is bringing you joy. And this can be anything. It can be being part of a football club. It can be art, painting, martial arts, whatever. For me, it was making videos. So even in my traveling and visiting places and all, I really liked the vlogging, making videos about something, which I'm still doing right now, right? I think at that point, like when I started in PhD, or when I, let's say, continued in PhD, it was mostly like when my experiments were not working, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. So like it used to help me, like when I now video and edit, like it used to take my mind off it and not make me very anxious. But right now I still like making videos, but I don't like editing. I don't have the time to edit, right? But yeah, I still like making videos. But during my PhD, it really just was another source of joy apart from my work. So yes, whether research works, I'll be happy, but also I'll be happy when I make a good video and when it's doing well. So just make sure you have a hobby outside of your research, because your research will end, you'll finish your PhD and start another life. So your PhD work is not your entire life. It's just a route to something else you're doing to become, okay? The 9th tip I'll say is patience and planning your research properly. Why did I say patience? Like when you're doing your research, you're probably working on different projects, or maybe you're working on a project to start another project. You will need patience. Like I've talked about experiment a lot. Sometimes you think you plan for experiment to finish in 1 week, to end up taking 2 months because of unforeseen circumstances, maybe breaking down or something not being purchased. And most times you might just be waiting for that experiment to go through. And this is a way I see people wasting time a lot in PhD, because they're like, oh, this thing has not been working for 3 months, and they're not doing any other thing. Like I said, the PhD is a combination of like different projects or different parts of projects. So as you go in your research, if you're doing something and it's not working, you have to now plan, like, okay, what other thing can I be doing now as I'm waiting for this one to work? Do I want to start writing a paper? Do I want to do literature review? Like do not have dead time just passing, because that's really wasting time. Do you want to start structuring? Okay, will I have just 3 main chapters in my dissertation? What can I do? Review paper, things like that. Just make sure you're constantly planning and not just like having their time just waiting for things. That way it will even help with your patience for what you're waiting for. So yeah, just make sure that you're planning your time properly and there's no wasted time. So whether you're waiting for an experiment, software, whatever, make sure you're doing other things, focusing on coursework, writing a chapter of your dissertation, writing a paper, yeah, basically. So the 10th tip will be organizing and managing your project properly. Remember, you're doing this for like 4 to 5 years, and in the last year, 5th or 4th year, you're meant to bring back all the things you've done from your very first year of your research. You don't want to start looking for something that you know you've done. You don't want to lose it. So from the very beginning, have a method for storing your data or storing your reports. For me, it was like in different folders for different years and even different months. So I had like meetings with my professor. At a point it was every week, then at a point it was like every 2 weeks. So I had a way of like labeling all of my meeting reports, and that helped me because sometimes when I'm like, oh yeah, I know I discussed this maybe March of 2022 or March of 2023, I can then trace it back to see, okay, what was I talking about there? What did they say? Blah, blah, blah. But even your data is very, very important. Make sure you have a way of storing it, like if it's name, date, like day, date, and like different as a day, month, year. Your folders, make sure that you have like a method for storing all of your data. So when you've stored, make sure you're backing up. So if you're storing on your computer, on your desktop, and there's backup to OneDrive, iCloud. For me, I had double. I think I had iCloud, then I was also uploading to OneDrive. Make sure you're uploading because you don't want stories. You don't want stories. You don't want your computer to crash and your data that you use 1 year to collect. So make sure you're storing it properly. Your references, make sure you have a proper references software. Really just use the one that your professors want you to use. It can be EndNote, can be Zotero, whatever. The ones that they use, just use it. That will just help you store all of the papers that you are reading, right? All of the random papers you've been reading over the years, everything is stored there, and you can easily just search when it's time for referencing. You can easily just reference to your paper. So that's very, very important. So like I said, double back, like backup in double way, because I was using like my Mac. I could easily just upload to iCloud, but I think my school had OneDrive too, so you could upload. If it's Google Drive, upload. Just make sure that it's backed up, because even beyond your PhD, if you've not published all your papers, for me now, I think I still have one paper left that is under review. If review comes and they're not telling me to change one figure or whatever, I need to be able to find the data that I used initially to be able to update that. So even beyond your PhD, make sure that PhD data is stored properly. So that's very important. So one extra tip, just make sure every day you do to-do list. Anyhow you want to do it, whether it's on paper or on Notion like I do, or whatever, or notes on your phone. I also do that. Just make sure you have to-do lists, because you just forget, like to-do list of your research, but also to-do list of your what you need to do like in your personal life. Just write it out and tick. When you tick, it just makes you happier that I've done this, because life is busy and research just makes it busier. So make sure you do that. And another thing is, for me, how you put down notes, maybe you figure out something, put it down. For me, paper and biro is a no-no. Paper and pen is a no-no now. Like, so I think in like my second year, my PhD, I got an iPad. Map is not sponsoring me, but when I got that iPad and I got notability on it, I'm like, I wish I had this thing since my first year where I was even taking courses. It just helps organize everything, because all those paper like books I was buying for courses, and I don't even know where it is now. Will I carry it from Tampa to here? Like, you get? But like when you have like a note-taking app, right, an organization app, it just makes everything easy. Even you can read there while, yes, upload your stuff to your referencing software, but like I also import to my Notability. I read, I highlight there, I write whatever I want to write, whatever thoughts, whatever ideas, and I can organize it there, and I can search what I've written. That's just so it makes life easy. So I'm like, I know I thought about this thing, where is it? I can search my Notability, and it brings out the document that I wrote it in, or it brings out the document that says that. So if you can get an iPad or whatever pad, I don't know, and get a note-taking app, I use Notability. I also use Notion for like organization and things like that. So yeah, that's it. I know this was long. So, but those are 10 tips to be successful in your PhD, passing through your PhD like a boss. Yes, there'll be times where you might cry, where you'll be down, but like if you put all these things together, overall you'll be a winner, you'll be a boss. Okay, I know I didn't put everything in this video, so if there are extra things like, oh, how are you succeeding in your PhD, how did you succeed in your PhD, blah blah, please let us know down in the comment section. If you have any questions, concerns, let me know in the comment section and we'll see how we can help. Okay, until next time, continue to live consciously, and I'll see you in my next video. Make sure you watch, I have like a playlist of all of my graduate school videos. So while I was in school, how to get scholarship, conferences, even if you're an international student, visas, you can binge watch on this playlist. Yeah, okay, bye.